When Michael finally came through again, he found himself falling through a ceiling like some kind of wormhole, landing hard flat on his face on a wooden ground. Although delirious, he quickly gained awareness of his surroundings and realised he was in his own pub. It was a place that people tended to gripe about but always found themselves drawn back to for a cheap drink and a night to remember or forget, no matter how much money they spent or who they walked away hating. It was a quiet afternoon before the big rush of the evening. Behind the bar was Michael's assistant manager Drew, a 25-year-old blonde with a soft voice, a high level of optimism, and respect for her co-workers. She was from Derbyshire, still having a slight accent that became especially clear with certain words. In Michael's mind, she didn't have much respect for him and only treated him like a respectable boss to his face. At the bar being served a pint of fruit cider by Drew was the regular customer Billy, a 68-year-old pensioner who Michael thought resembled a rat. His eyes, almost always covered by shades, were far apart, his nose was small, his facial hair was scraggly, and his lip had a constant twitch as if he was trying to smell out one of the nearest blocks of cheese. In a desperate attempt to seem younger, he always wore a hoodie, trainers, a silver chain, and a black cap. An indictable offender for assault and burglary, he was feared in gossip but harmless in his age, thinking very little of Michael and the pub, and only coming for the cheap beer and the young female staff. Drew didn't even acknowledge Michael's falling or his presence as he stood up and looked around the pub in confusion, trying his hardest to make sense of what was going on. Still in pain, Michael rubbed his knee and his cheek before finally recognising the venue as his. He attempted to capture both Drew's and Billy's attention, but neither of them could see or hear him. "There you go, Billy," said Drew as she set the cider down. "Thanks, darling," said Billy. Billy took his drink and walked over to a small square table with 4 seats around it. He was the only one sitting there, putting his drink down on a square coaster and sighing as he relaxed. Michael continued to look intently at Drew. She was distracting herself from the quiet daytime shift by using a cloth to wipe some overspill off of the bar. Michael walked towards her and rested his hands on the bar. "Drew," he said. "Drew, listen to me. I'm in control of this. I myself alone am in control, and that means you are under my control. You might have some independence in the real world, but this is my dream. Mine! What the hell is—" Drew unintentionally interrupted Michael as she looked up and saw Hayley appearing from the back room around the corner. The 24-year-old was Drew's work bestie, a typical Essex girl with a voice, nails, and heavy eye makeup. She was a surprisingly well-working bartender that excelled at her job and served as a bit of self-proclaimed eye candy for the customers. In Michael's mind, her attitude alone meant she didn't think much of him or the place she worked. "Hiya, darling," said Hayley. As Hayley walked behind Drew, she stopped for a second to give her 6 very fast-paced spanks on her buttocks. 3 on the left, 3 on the right. "You dirty bitch!" Drew gasped. Hayley reached down into the fridge and took out a bottle of Viral Palm lemonade. She took a proud stand next to Drew and grabbed a bottle opener from under the bar to crack the lemonade open before taking a heavy swig. "You alright then?" asked Drew. "Yeah, just hanging a little," said Hayley. "How about you, love?" "Yeah, I'm alright." Drew tossed her cloth into the sink. "Did you get munted last night?" "Babe, let's be real for a minute. Do I ever not?" The two of them exchanged a laugh. Michael didn't understand their humour or their friendly banter, staring at them in utter bemusement as they continued to not even realise he was there. He attempted once again to be heard, but his cries fell on deaf ears. He was agitated, as if they were intentionally ignoring him. "So what happened at the motive then?" asked Drew. "Look at me when I'm talking to you!" yelled Michael. Michael suddenly burst into a coughing fit following his outburst, bending down with one hand on his chest and the other firmly resting on the bar. Once he stood up again, he found himself outside on the street in the middle of a neighbourhood, leaning against a brick wall. Confused, he looked up at the sky and the houses like a curious child seeing the outside world after being buried underground. Just to be sure he was in fact where he thought he was, Michael injured himself by stamping his socked foot on the ground to prove it was concrete. He jumped onto the garden wall he was leaning on and rubbed his foot. He calmly breathed in and out through his teeth. He then came to the horrific realization that he was somewhere he was hoping he wouldn't have to face. He straightened his back, rested his hands on the wall, and very slowly looked around to view the house the wall belonged to. It was the Freighter family home belonging to his old bosses. Chloe, he muttered. Chloe and Augustus's house. Why? Oh no. Oh no, not this. Please, not this one. Like an autonomous robot with a permanently confused face, Michael stared at the house as he jumped off of the wall, put his hands in his dressing gown pockets, walked through the wooden gate, and approached the front door. He looked at it up and down once before looking at the peephole. He very slowly raised his arm to knock on the door but hesitated. He took a deep breath and gently knocked 3 times. Losing his patience while waiting, he knocked again in traditional shave and a haircut fashion. He stepped back and nervously awaited a response. He eventually heard footsteps approaching from inside. The door opened, revealing 43-year-old Augustus Freighter, Michael's formal ex-boss. He recalled in his mind how Augustus was picky about decorations but otherwise laid back. He had rugged good looks and was a hell of a drinker. He was dressed in a crimson-red coloured jumper and blue jeans with house-friendly brown slip-on shoes. "Ah, hey dude," he said with a beaming smile. "How's it going?" In present Michael's place was a younger, more confident, but still incredibly awkward version of himself at 20 years of age. He was now dressed in a brown high-collar jumper, red and black tartan trousers, and heavy black boots with incredibly thick soles, the kind of clothing he used to be very comfortable wearing in his younger years. His hair was longer, his skin was lighter, and his eyes had more life and energy behind them. Very good, Aug, he said. Aug, nice, said Augustus. Thank you, Mikey. The two chuckled and fell into an awkward silence, unsure of who should say what next. Is there anything I or Chloe can help you with? Augustus asked. Well, yes, there is, said Michael. Could I come in? Augustus formally welcomed Michael into the house, standing aside and holding an arm out. Michael was his present-day self again, dressing gown and all. He thanked his soon-to-be ex-employer and entered the house in a small coughing fit. Augustus closed the front door behind him. In the sitting room, 40-year-old Chloe sat on the couch on her laptop. She had thin blonde hair, round glasses, and was dressed in a black t-shirt with denim dungarees. She was both partially unaware and disinterested in her husband's presence as he slid in theatrically with the aim of being amusing. Look who I found crawling around aside, said August. Or outside, rather. The young adult version of Michael awkwardly poked his head into the room and greeted Chloe with a drawn-out hello. Oh, hi, hun, she said. How are you doing? Good, said Michael. Just chillin' and killin', you know how it is, surely. We've all been young once. Chloe agreed with Michael. The older Michael entered the room, looking around in bemusement as the memories of the fateful visit began to swarm through his mind like a hive of aggressive hornets. The young adult Michael waved himself about awkwardly and Augustus stood aimlessly. The older Michael took a seat in a nearby armchair to passively observe the events taking place. Do you fancy a drink, dude? Said Augustus. Coffee, tea, or a beer? It's a bit early for that, Augustus, said Chloe. Well, not really, Chloe. He's a grown man, isn't he? I'll take a tea and a beer, if that's all right, said the younger Michael. Ah, good man, said Augustus. Best of both worlds, eh? Exactly, said both Michaels in unison. Augustus chuckled before giving the younger Michael a tap on the shoulder and heading for the kitchen. The older Michael rubbed his shoulder, the mere memory of the warming tap being enough for him to feel it again. Chloe continued to type away at her laptop while the younger Michael continued to stand there and wait for her to finish. She apologised and assured Michael she'd be done soon. "This is it, isn't it?" the older Michael mumbled to himself. "This is where it all goes tits up and I'm left feeling like a dick on holiday trying to forget what a horrible fucking—" "Sorry, darling, I'm almost done," Chloe interrupted. "Take as long as you like," said the older Michael. "I wish you'd taken forever. Maybe given me some more time to consider what I was about to do. I guess 4 days wasn't really enough." Chloe closed her laptop and put it aside. She stood up, sighed, and walked over to the younger Michael with open arms, hugging him. Rather awkwardly, he didn't respond at first, then slowly put his arm around Chloe to return the affection. The older Michael looked on in disappointment at his younger self's awkwardness. "You alright?" asked Chloe. Yeah, I'm great, thank you," said the younger Michael. "I was just wondering maybe, if we could have a work-related chat?" Chloe agreed and sat down, gesturing for the younger Michael to take a seat on the couch. He obliged and thanked her. "Don't want you exhausting yourself after the walk over here," she said. Like twins in sync, both versions of Michael snickered at Chloe's remark. She chuckled in return. Shortly afterwards, the two Michaels' smiles then almost instantly turned into looks of sadness, fear, and regret. "You were always so nice," said the older Michael. "You gave me the first job I ever really felt passionate about." "So what's on your mind?" asked Chloe. "You knew me so well. You knew I walked here. I didn't take a train or that accursed bus, God forbid. I was always too tight. I still am." "Well, we know what you're like. What you were like, at least. We just didn't quite get why you made your way over here unannounced, that's all. We hadn't seen you properly for a couple of weeks." The older Michael's eyes widened. He lost his breath and his hearing was once again drowned out by the sound of his own heavy heartbeat. The sharp ringing returned momentarily before fading out. You can hear me," he said. "Well, of course I can, sweetheart," said Chloe. Augustus re-entered the room holding a couple of beer bottles with the caps removed. He rushed towards the younger Michael and handed him one of the beers before handing the other to Chloe. "Thank you, Aug," she said. "Thought of me, did you?" "Well, I could tell you were quietly choking for one," said Augustus. "A husband who still knows his wife, eh?" Chloe turned to the younger Michael, no longer able to see the older one. "That's all right, isn't it?" The younger Michael chuckled and agreed with her. The older Michael said nothing as he continued to watch, anticipating horrible things soon to take place. He cursed his younger self for the twat he believed him to be, shouting loudly into his ear to try and get some sense into him. His efforts were in vain. "We argue, we just don't hate each other," said Augustus. "Well, not yet," said Chloe. "No, not yet, that's right." Both versions of Michael awkwardly sat in silence as the freighter couple became involved in their own conversation. "Did you put enough water in the kettle for 3? asked Chloe. "No, I didn't want one," said Augustus. 2 then? "Yeah." "Oh, good. I was going to make Michael 2. Did you want one?" Chloe rolled her eyes and took a sip of her beer. Augustus chuckled and waited a brief moment for another remark from her, but received nothing. He looked at the younger Michael, who in return looked up at him with an awkward smile. "Be right back then," said Augustus as he shot off. "You two get started without me?" "All right, Aug," said Chloe. "So what's up, Michael?" The younger Michael swallowed some beer down the wrong hole. He began to cough violently and apologised as he composed himself. The older Michael, as if he could feel the beer in the back of his throat, began to violently cough as well. He held a hand to his chest while Chloe comforted the younger Michael and patted his back in a motherly fashion. Once both of them calmed down, Chloe sat back down and asked the younger Michael what he wanted to discuss. Well, I guess in technical terms, I wanted to talk to you about some time off, he said. Okay, well, when were you thinking, and for how long? Well, it's more like... Well, I think... I wanted to, I think I... Are you thinking of... changing careers? Changing venues? Well, I've been offered... my own place. Oh! Okay, great. It's really cool. What is it? It's a pub in Southend. I'll start off as one of the co-owners, take a manager's position, make my way up, and earn some serious money. You get it, right? Yeah, of course. When were you planning on, leaving? Chloe chuckled awkwardly. Michael held his beer bottle in both hands and looked down at it to avoid making eye contact with Chloe. The younger Michael held his beer bottle in both hands and looked down at it to avoid making eye contact with Chloe. I might go to France for a bit, he said. Just to take a break before I start, you know? I told them I was taking a little holiday before starting, I mean. Okay, well, alright then, said Chloe. How long did you need to... I'll need to quit immediately. No 2 weeks, no helping out anymore. I'm done. Officially, I mean. Last night was my last shift and then I'm off on Wednesday. The older Michael cringed and looked away in response to his younger self. Oh, okay, said Chloe disheartedly. You couldn't maybe have let us... I had to act fast, you know, the younger Michael cried. It wasn't an easy direction, it really wasn't. But it's best for what I plan on doing, and I need to think about what I'm doing next. It has to be something that works out for me. It'll leave me monetary, comfortable, let me afford my own place. I mean, this decision will pay for itself in at least a month of my being there. And I'll still show up for a drink or two, and I'll actually pay for it, God forbid. An awkward silence. The older Michael felt a sharp pain in his chest and a heavy tension on the back of his neck. Chloe took a heavy swig of her beer. She didn't even look at the younger Michael. The older Michael looked at her intently, feeling icky and nasty as he digested the conversation embedded deep into his mind. Well, do what you gotta do, I guess, said Chloe. The tension was thick as fog. The older Michael could still hear the heavy pulse. He held a hand to his chest and firmly clutched the arm of his chair. This is my least favourite bit, he said. Yeah, said Chloe. Mine too, you fucking arsehole. 2 teas for the beer bandits, said August as he burst back onto the scene with 2 hot cups of tea. I don't want one anymore, thank you, said Chloe. Oh, alright then. Michael? No, thank you, said both Michaels in sync. How about one to the face? What do you mean? Asked a confused older Michael. Well, that's what you did to us. I made a career decision. I thought you would understand. Augustus splashed both mugs of scalding brown liquid all over the older Michael's face. He screamed in pain as he blindly charged towards Augustus, who grabbed Michael and threw him onto the ground in the middle of the sitting room, causing him to smash his head on the fireplace area. When he lifted his head, Michael was in a normal outfit consisting of a brown jumper, black trousers, and normal work shoes. His hair was styled slightly differently and he was sitting at a desk with a lamp on it. He desperately clawed at his own face and pulled at his hair before finally realising that the pain of the tea had completely disappeared. His headache and coughing remained, however, so he rubbed his chest until the coughing stopped. He recognised the room to be his medium-sized office with just enough room for a metal shelving unit, a desk, a smaller computer desk with a monitor on top, and a low-hanging light. Honestly, Michael, I'm growing sick of this, said a female voice. Are we doing this or aren't we? Michael froze. He recognised the voice and it scared him. He put his head into his hands and hunched over his desk as he begged whatever powers were in charge of his nightmare not to make it true. Michael! 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 What? He aggressively yelled as he threw his hands away. Sitting on the other side of the desk was Angela Hooper, Michael's 29-year-old ex-girlfriend, who he still had unwanted nightmares about. He stared at her for a moment in hopes it wasn't so. But it was. Her greenish blue eyes, her bright cheeks, her pearly white teeth, her tasteless fluffy coat, her skin-tight black trousers with zip-up calves, her leather boots with gold buckles, and her long brown hair, freshly permed with loose curls. Everything about her beauty was deceptive as to the true kind of person she was, which was a cold, overbearing, lazy, unethical woman who valued nothing other than herself and her problems. "Angela?" said Michael. "Yes, Angela," she replied with rolling eyes. "The same one who's been sitting here for half an hour waiting for your undivided attention away from that goddamn computer! If you'll give me 1 minute, as I said about 50 seconds ago, I'll be ready to talk to you. Don't think you can suddenly get an attitude with me, Michael. I'm not one of your pretty bar staff. You know I have psoriasis and you're stressing me out and making it worse. And every time you complain, I add another 10 seconds. Oh, this is ridiculous." Angela scowled at Michael. He looked at her with a tired and bored face. "Look, why have you come to visit me when I'm in my office?" he asked. "The flat, Michael," she said. "I still have things in there that I need taking out. I still have the keys, so I don't mind going around when you're not there. I just need dates." "I don't want you in there alone with all of my things," said Michael. "Your things?" "That's right, my things. What about that Play for Today collection? You never would have even heard of that show if it wasn't for me. Or Mother's Dining Table. Those were gifts, you said. Gifts for me. Gifts for us. You don't even like the woman or that table. You just thought it was more convenient than going out and buying one. Oh, I'm Angela. I cheat on all my boyfriends and I'm happy my mother's going to die one day so I can justify taking her table when she offers." "You're disgusting." "I'm not letting you in there whenever I'm gone. Period. So long as I tell the others in the building not to let you in that flat, you won't get in without my knowledge or my being there at the same time." "I'll call the police," Angela threatened. "And tell them what?" said Michael. "That your ex-boyfriend who you willingly left for some bloke off the buses isn't allowing you into a flat that you're having your name removed from the lease of?" Angela hesitated before answering. "Maybe. It's theft." Michael rolled his eyes and rubbed his forehead. "It's pretty much the exact opposite of theft, Angela," he said. "In American terms, I'm standing my ground against you because I consider you to be an intruder. I'm surprised I haven't gotten a court order to get those keys off of you." "Well, why don't you?" she replied. Michael didn't respond. He opted instead to ignore Angela and focus on a small stack of files he had yet to go through. She scowled once again and cursed him. Another version of Michael in his dressing gown and pyjamas appeared from the shadows of the office, standing over Angela as he looked down at her. "Because I wanted you to come back," he said in a pathetic tone. "And I still do. Even after all that. Even after this."